Controversy is brewing as South Korea turns out to have been put on the U.S. sensitive countries list back in January. The authorities are trying to ensure that this does not disrupt bilateral cooperation in high-tech areas. The OECD sounds the alarm on higher trade barriers and growing geopolitical risks for the world economy. It has cut the global economic growth to a little over 3% for this year, and that of South Korea to 1.5%. U.S. President Donald Trump says he will speak to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, on Tuesday over a Ukraine peace deal, with their possible agenda on land and power plants. It's March 17th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. The country is hoping to better understand the U.S. decision to designate South Korea as a sensitive country shortly before the Biden administration left office in January. The focus is on what this could mean for the allies' cooperation in technology. Kim Jung-sil has our top story.
South Korea, a key U.S. ally, has been added to the U.S. Energy Department's sensitive and other designated countries list, expanding it to 26 alongside North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran. The designation allows the U.S. to impose restrictions on science and technology cooperation. While South Korea is in the lowest tier as other designated countries, it remains the only U.S. ally with a formal defense treaty. Although current cooperation is assured, future research and technology sharing will face heightened scrutiny. The U.S. decision made in January follows South Korean President Yoon's controversial martial law declaration in December, which experts suggest may have influenced the move.
Due to South Korea's serious domestic political turmoil at the time, the U.S. placed it in the lowest category, other designated countries on the SCL.
The U.S. list cites concerns over national security, nuclear non-proliferation, and terrorism, leading some experts in Seoul to believe that growing discussions on South Korea's nuclear self-reliance may have also influenced the designation.
I think one of the main reasons is, political upheaval that has been going on in South Korea, but more importantly, acquiring own nuclear weapon capability.
The government was caught off guard with no prior notification. Acting President Choi Sang-mok led an emergency meeting on Monday, stressing the need for active communication with Washington to avoid disrupting cooperation. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy has been instructed to engage with his U.S. counterpart this week. Experts suggest that once South Korea resolves its domestic political turmoil, it could be removed from the list.
Once the Constitutional Court's decision on the impeachment is announced, the political turmoil in South Korea will be resolved. In that case, there would be no reason for the Trump administration to keep South Korea on this list.
Seoul is actively engaging with Washington to resolve the issue before the designation takes effect on April 15th. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Trump's reciprocal tariffs on all American trade partners, including South Korea, will go into effect in April as scheduled, as his administration aims to sit down for new bilateral trade talks. Lee Soo-jin has the details.
The United States is considering forging new trade agreements, which could also impact free trade agreement partners like South Korea. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in a CBS interview on Sunday local time, said that the U.S. could potentially engage in bilateral agreements with countries after resetting a new baseline of fairness and reciprocity. He emphasized that bilateral negotiations would not begin until reciprocal tariffs were fully implemented on countries like Canada, Mexico, and most of the EU, suggesting the tariffs could serve as a bargaining tool. He also stated that the reciprocal tariffs are not targeted towards specific nations but apply to all countries. South Korea's Trade Minister Chung In-kyo, who visited Washington to request an exemption from the tariffs, said on his return that the reciprocal tariffs on South Korea are likely to take effect on April 2nd, as President Donald Trump previously announced.
The goal of reducing the trade deficit through reciprocal tariffs has not changed. Since President Trump directly oversees these tariffs, it's highly likely that his policies will be carried out as planned.
While there were no discussions on specific items like automobiles or beef, he said that the U.S. highlighted how South Korea's sanitary policies and technical regulations have made it difficult for the U.S. to access the Korean market. Chung's trip to the U.S. to meet with his counterpart follows Trump's accusation earlier this month that South Korea imposes tariffs 4 times higher than those of the U.S., a claim that Korea disputed. South Korea's effective tariff rate on U.S. imports stands at 0.79% as of 2024, in line with the two countries' FTA, a sharp drop from the 2.48% in 2015. While it is unclear whether South Korea's FTA with the United States will be revised or replaced by a completely new deal, given that it was already revised during Trump's first term, it is highly likely that further adjustments will be considered in response to the changing trade dynamics. 이수진, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow to discuss ending the war in Ukraine and potential concessions to be considered. Cha Yoon has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters on Sunday during a late flight back to Washington from Florida that he will speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday after talks between U.S. and Russian officials in Moscow last week. Trump said he's trying to win Putin's support for a 30-day ceasefire proposal that Ukraine accepted last week as Ukraine and Russia continued trading heavy aerial strikes over the weekend. Trump projected a positive outcome on the ceasefire deal.
Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but I think we have a very good chance.
For concessions that are being considered in ceasefire negotiations, Trump mentioned about possibly dividing up land and power plants, which have been already discussed by both Ukraine and Russia.
We'll be talking about land. It's a lot of land. It's a lot different than it was before the wars, you know. And we'll be talking about land. We'll be talking about power plants. But I think we have a lot of it already discussed very much by both sides.
You'll ask him.
Ukraine and Russia.
You'll ask him.
We're already talking about that, dividing up certain assets.
The U.S. has been pushing for a ceasefire in Ukraine, but Russia has not given a firm position, instead insisting on various conditions by outlining numerous details that need to be negotiated before any deal can be completed. Cha Yoon, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, U.S. fighter jets targeted several Houthi drones launched from Yemen this past Sunday amid attacks on American Navy ships following U.S. bombings of Houthi militant sites in Yemen. Choi Soo-hyung has the latest.
Powerful explosions occurred across many regions of Yemen, including its capital Sana'a, over the weekend. U.S. forces carried out more than 170 airstrikes against Iran-backed Houthi rebels in the Middle Eastern country. The U.S. targeted military bases, specifically their missile and drone capabilities in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. The operation was aimed at deterring attacks on international shipping routes in the Red Sea and to secure maritime navigation there. President Trump said the U.S. responded to Houthi attacks on American ships and aircraft in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Trump's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, told ABC News on Sunday that Iran should be held responsible for supporting the rebel group.
This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And the difference here is, one, going after the Houthi leadership, and two, holding Iran responsible. It is Iran that has repeatedly funded, resourced, trained, and helped the Houthis.
The Houthi-run health ministry reported that the strikes resulted in at least 53 deaths and injured over 100 people. In retaliation to the airstrikes, the self-styled Yemeni armed forces stated that they would target all American warships in the Red and Arabian Seas.
The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target all American warships in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea in retaliation to the aggression against our country.
These forces carried out a military operation on Sunday local time with multiple ballistic missiles and drones launched at the American aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and its battle group. However, the U.S. stated that 11 drones were shot down by U.S. aircraft while the missiles malfunctioned and fell into the sea. The United Nations expressed concern over the U.S. and Houthi clashes and urged for a halt to all military activities. Hyung, Arirang News.
The OECD signals a slowdown in the global growth prospects, citing trade tensions and geopolitical uncertainties. The global economic outlook has been dragged down to a little over 3% for this year. Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Steering through uncertainty is what the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is calling the current global economic situation, forecasting a gradual slowdown in global economic growth over the next 3 years. Its interim economic outlook published on Monday anticipates that global economic growth will moderate, projecting figures of 3.1% for 2025 and 3% for 2026. Notably, the growth forecast for this year has been revised downwards by 0.2 percentage points compared to the previous projection given in December last year. The OECD highlights that while the global economy has remained resilient, recent economic activity indicators suggest a softening of global growth prospects. Significant changes in trade policies were outlined as a critical concern, as the new Trump administration rolls out sweeping tariffs, warning that these shifts could impede economic growth and contribute to rising inflation. The organization also noted that inflationary pressures persist across numerous nations. Regional variations in economic performance are expected. In the United States, growth is projected to slow due to the implementation of increased tariffs, with forecasts of 2.2% this year, while China's economy is expected to maintain relatively robust growth, with forecasts of 4.8% in 2025. However, Canada and Mexico are projected to be severely negatively impacted by the new U.S. tariffs. As for the South Korean economy, it is projected to grow at a subdued pace of 1.5% this year and 2.2% next year. The 2025 South Korea growth projection has also been revised downwards, reflecting the general trend of reduced growth forecasts among major economies, and falls in line with forecasts from other major institutions. The Bank of Korea adjusted its forecast for domestic economic growth this year also to 1.5% back in February, while the Korea Development Institute revised its forecast to 1.6%. Going forward, the OECD's policy recommendations advise central banks to navigate potential increases in trade costs and has called for international cooperation to address trade concerns, structural reforms to promote competition, and support for growth in productivity through the integration of artificial intelligence technologies. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
With President Yoon's impeachment case stretching beyond 3 months, longer than the cases for previous leaders, public and political tension is growing by the day. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
The mood is restless as the nation awaits the Constitutional Court's ruling on President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment following his December 3rd martial law last year. With no indication of when the 8-member bench will issue its verdict, which was widely expected last Friday, the court's deliberation period has stretched beyond 2 weeks, longer than it took for the impeachment trials of former Presidents Park Geun-hye and Roh Moo-hyun. As the court typically announces the ruling schedule at least 2 days in advance, the earliest date would be later this week, most likely on Friday. In any case, it's highly probable that the bench will deliver the ruling before April 18th, when 2 justices retire. As Judgment Day draws closer, Police estimate 44,000 protesters gathered in Gwanghwamun Square over the weekend, calling for Yoon's impeachment, while some 60,000 rallied against it, as public opinion remains deeply divided. To minimize the turmoil expected after the ruling, political leaders are being urged to send a clear message that they will accept the court's verdict no matter what. The ruling People Power Party leadership says Sunday they have already expressed their commitment to accepting the court's ruling multiple times and emphasised this remains the party's official stance.
Whether it is a joint press conference between ruling and opposition party leaders or a joint statement, we will issue a message of acceptance in some form.
Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung has also expressed his willingness to accept the ruling during a YouTube broadcast, while floor leader Park Chan-dae said respecting the court's decision is a given. Still, both sides of the political spectrum are stepping up pressure on the judicial bench. Over the weekend, some ruling party lawmakers continued to protest against impeachment, holding marathon demonstrations outside the Constitutional Court for the 6th straight day. Meanwhile, opposition lawmakers staged an 8.7-mile march from the National Assembly to Gwanghwamun Square, urging Yoon's removal.
As for the president, Yoon has been silent and has not issued public messages while the court deliberates on his fate. His lawyer has previously said that the president would accept the court's decision. A presidential official told local media on Sunday that Yoon remains at his residence and is calmly waiting for the verdict. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And today, the Seoul Central District Court began the trials of several military and police authorities on charges of insurrection amid the short-lived martial law declared by President Yoon on December 3rd. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun was at court earlier this afternoon amid allegations that he sought to keep lawmakers from entering the parliament to vote against the martial law. Former head of the Korea Defense Intelligence Command, Do Sang-won, was also at the court here in Seoul, and later this week, suspended Commissioner of the National Police Agency, Cho Ji-ho, is scheduled to appear at the court. Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Our sports editor, Paul Need, joins us in the studio. Welcome.
Hello.
Let's begin with badminton. Yet another win for An Se-young.
Yeah, she's in great form at the moment. This time it was at the All England Open, the 126-year-old competition in Birmingham on Sunday, and beat Wang Ji of China in the final. A leg injury held An back in the first game, losing 13-21, but she rebounded impressively to win the next two, 21-18, 21-18, in what was a 1-hour, 35-minute battle. This marks her second success in the All England Open, following the win in 2023. The world #1 has dominated the badminton scene in 2025 so far, securing 4 straight international titles and extending her winning streak to 20 matches.
Moving on to short track speed skating, a gold medal for Choi Min-jung.
Yes, at the ISU World Short Track Speed Skating Championships, Choi Min-jung won the gold medal in the women's 1500 metres. On Sunday in Beijing, Che was the first to cross the line, doing so with a time of 2 minutes 27.136 seconds. And by winning the gold medal, she has also qualified for the 2026 Winter Olympics. It is the 13th world title of her career, and she last won one as recently as 2022. In the same event, Kim Gil-lee won the bronze medal with a time of 2 minutes 27.257 seconds.
And in speed skating, there was a long-awaited World Championship medal for Lee Seung-hoon.
Yes, it was the first time in 9 years for the 37-year-old. In Norway on Saturday local time in the ISU World Speed Skating Single Distances Championships, Lee Seung-hoon won silver in the men's mass start with a time of 7 minutes 56.52 seconds. Andrea Giovannini of Italy was just 0.05 seconds faster to win gold. Yi's last World Championship medal came in 2016 in Russia. Meanwhile, Kim Min-sun on Sunday also won in Norway. She won the bronze in the women's 500 metres with a time of 37.73 seconds. It was her second straight medal at the annual World Championships.
And finally, to football. A key player has had to withdraw from the South Korean national football squad, national team squad, ahead of the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. What's the story behind that?
Yes, I'm afraid so. Bayern Munich defender Kim Min-jae has had to withdraw through injury. He has an Achilles injury and will therefore miss the World Cup qualifiers with Oman on March 20th and then Jordan on March 25th, both at home. The KFA announced on Saturday that Kim Min-jae would be best served to get some treatment for the injury. Bayern had already announced that he would be out for the time being. FC Seoul's centre-back Kim Ju-sung has been called up in his place. Now, South Korea could seal their place at the 2026 World Cup should they win both of their matches this week and next week. They currently sit top of Group B, 3 points ahead of Iraq, but 5 ahead of Jordan with 4 games to go. The top 2 will reach the World Cup.
All right, Paul, thank you for that. See you next week.
Thank you.
Temperatures were 2 to 6 degrees lower than usual nationwide, with the temperature in Seoul hitting minus 1.3 degrees Celsius this morning. With snow and rain falling across the country, tomorrow will be as cold as today. By tomorrow, up to 10 centimeters of snow will fall on the western inland areas, including the Seoul metropolitan area. Up to 30 centimeters of heavy snow is expected in eastern parts of the country, such as the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province. This snow will gradually fade away in the western parts of the country tomorrow morning, and a lull is expected in most parts of the country tomorrow night. Tomorrow morning will start off at minus 4 degrees Celsius in Chuncheon, Gwangju and Daegu, 1 degree. Daily highs will move up to 6 to 9 degrees across the country. Temperatures will start to climb back from Thursday, with Seoul reaching up to 15 degrees. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.